First, I have to say it's an absolute honor to meet you. You've created some of the most amazing characters in all the Star Wars universe. I have to ask about kind of bringing Clone Wars to a close and now Rebels going into its final season.
Yeah.
What is that like as a creator, seeing these things kind of come to an end but transitioning into something new?
It's actually really satisfying. I mean, I think that you owe the audience a complete story, and having worked on Clone Wars and we didn't exactly get to finish that out as planned, so I was very aware of that doing Rebels the whole time, that this has to be its own little saga and really reward the viewers who have stuck with us loyally. And I think we've done a really good job. I'm really pleased with how it's gone so far, and I think it's some of our best work yet.
Absolutely. One of the amazing things that we have learned as viewers about the different Star Wars shows is how inclusive their writers' rooms are and how inclusive the creative process is. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important when you're dealing with so many different types of characters, and Star Wars is such a global phenomenon. It's something that resonates with everybody, and so it's great to have many different points of view coming together to tell the stories or to talk about characters. And when you're writing now, we have a lot of female characters that are stepping to the forefront. George really, he's been on top of that since Leia in the original movies, but when he added characters like Ahsoka in the Clone Wars and furthering that, it really helps to have perspectives coming from the women in the group and story group with Kiri Hart and Carrie Beck. It just adds a dimension of understanding the character arcs and emotions that you might not have otherwise. So I think it's a great movement you see across Hollywood in so many ways, and it's really about representing not just in front of the camera but behind the camera as well, creatively and writing and directing. And I'm just glad that we can represent that and hopefully inspire all kids to just say, I want to do this and I want to dream, and hopefully they wind up here at places like this with people that share common interests.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that female representation, I have to at least ask about Ahsoka.
Okay.
We're really keeping our fingers crossed for this next season. Any tidbits that you can offer, or anything you can offer to fans who really have their hopes up to see Ahsoka again?
I will have to wait and see. It's not her story, so I always have to be sure of how I include characters and if it's important to include them. I think everything is fit together really well, though, so it is possible that she'd make an appearance, and if she does, though, it has to be a big moment and a moment that's meaningful to the characters on Rebels. But we're getting close now. We'll be airing in a couple months, and I like what I see, and I hope the audience will too.
Yes, and I have to mention Sam Witwer, Rebels cast member, yes, and an interview he did recently where he talked about that he was so excited that he got to pull the heartstrings with Darth Maul, which I don't think we ever thought would happen.
Sure.
So what can you tell us about kind of the trajectory of that character and what the experience was in working with him again?
Well, I think it was surprising some of the directions that when we worked with George on Clone Wars, he wanted to go with some of the characters, and he was always about adding a lot of dimension. These characters aren't just one thing, and if you're going to have Maul as a character come back, we had to do something new with him. He can't just be fighting like he always has been fighting, and what's his thought process, his evolutionary process. And working with Sam, who I've now for a while, he loves getting inside the character's mind like that, and he loves broadening their view and of the world, and especially with Obi-Wan Kenobi coming into it later, we had to say something about Obi-Wan and who he is and where he's at on his journey of understanding life and the Force and how that contrasts to Maul. So it is a sad story, but with many villains, what's at the heart of them is a sorrow, and a sorrow that turns into fear, and that fear turns into anger, and it's just that progression you see, but mostly inside they're deeply frightened. Usually in folk tales, sometimes they're the most frightened character of all, and that's what makes them evil. So Maul, he had a tough life, and I think sadly in the end he wound up with not much, but that's the story, and that's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I just want to say, Dave, thank you so much for all of your efforts over the years working on Star Wars. You've added so much to the universe, and we are forever grateful. So thank you
so much. So nice to meet you.
Thank you as well.
Take
and thank
care.
you for your time.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.